Welcome back, listeners, to the Tron podcast. This is your host, Rashad Woods. Today, I have a very special guest from the great state of Utah, CEO of Holly Porter International. Holly Porter, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you for having me, Rashad.
It's really a big honor. First of all, I got to tell you, between your profiles and all the success that you've had in life in overcoming adversity, and I'm going to let you tell your story. I think that's important, but I just want to say it's an honor and a pleasure, and I'm glad you're here, considering the things that you've gone through.
Oh, well, thank you. Well, I'm glad I'm here too.
Yeah.
There's been many days that I wasn't so glad I was here.
Right. So, with further ado, please tell us about your background, your business career, your personal, overcoming your personal items, illness, and like I said, you have a wonderful story.
Oh, sure. And you feel free to interrupt me too if something needs clarified,
Of
because
course.
sometimes you just get rambling and you don't realize there's an important detail maybe I'll miss.
No problem.
Well, so I was raised by two entrepreneur parents, and I started working for my dad in his office. He was a mason in Las Vegas, Nevada, growing up. And so I had to earn my own school clothes money to buy them from 12 on up. And that's really where it all started. And I remember looking at a flyer on the wall that said minimum wage was $3.33 an hour, and I was only getting paid $2.50 an hour. So me and my dad had a little discussion about that, but I got humbled real quick because I was only 12, and that was child labor, right?
Right.
So I knew I always wanted. What's that?
Yeah, I was just saying, right. Yeah, he's like, well, not so much. Let's hold on a minute here.
Prove your worth.
Exactly. Please continue.
So then, yeah, so that just started. I knew pretty quickly. I did lots of babysitting as a teenager because I was from a really large family and I was only number 3. So had lots of experience there. And so fast forward, I graduated from high school a year early, not because I was so smart. I just always was an old soul and had older friends. And I just wanted to get out in the world and have 3 jobs and have a family. And it just never stopped from there. That's exactly what I did.
Right.
And so as my kids were growing up, I've had 11 startup companies, not counting all the little things I've started with my kids and helped them set them up in business. These were just my own.
Wonderful.
But as they were growing up, I did things that worked with the kids when I had them at home. So I had a children daycare at home, and then I've had a preschool. I had a children's clothing store. So those were the 3 that I did as they were getting older and growing up. And then the longest ones I've had is a salon and spa. I had that for about 20 years. We did hair, nails, skin, everything, massage, everything in there. And I had a license pretty much to do everything because I get bored easy and I just wanted to keep learning. I always want to keep learning.
Right.
While I had the salon, we had a fundraising company as well where we would help youth groups and dance groups earn money so that they could get the things that they needed.
Wonderful.
And we had a concrete company. My husband's been involved in that over 40 years. I also got my real estate license, and then a few years later got my broker's license for real estate. Yeah. So we were running 3 or 4 at a time. So that's, otherwise I'd be about 110. Do all those as many years as they were. But I loved entrepreneurship and business. And in the town I was in, when I was doing a lot of those at the same time, I was also president or chair of usually at least 1 or 2 organizations at a time.
Right.
And we were also raising 8 children. So we had a whole house full of teenagers, and life was busy. We were in it.
Wow.
And
that's amazing.
I look back now and I think, I was a multi-tasker.
Yeah.
And was I present? And so there's so many lessons in that. Like, yeah, sure, I'm sitting on the soccer field. I'm the regional commissioner, over 1,400 kids playing soccer, doing real estate deals, watching my 4 kids at the time play. And sometimes they were on 4 different fields and different locations.
And you're just walking up and down the field on the phone at the same time, doing what you got.
So you're present, but you're not really present. So lots of lessons there. But yeah, so then that was just kind of the past little blanket covered story. Fast forward a little bit into the pandemic when all of us suffered, not just me. I just happened to get the Delta version and landed myself 70 days in the hospital,
Unbelievable.
and I was on a ventilator for, let's see, 52 days, and I was in a coma
Wow.
off and on about 63 days on a feeding tube,
Unbelievable.
2 intubations,
Oh my God.
a tracheostomy, I mean, sepsis, lots of things, lots of life-threatening days. And so it really shifted life and perspective. Those were the days that I laid there praying
Oh
to
my
die,
gosh. I'm so
because
sorry to hear about that.
when you lose your
Yeah.
breath, it's
Right.
everything.
Right.
And when you don't have it, you end up PTSD, anxiety,
Unbelievable.
depression comes in later after you're trying to heal. And the cool thing is I had a lot of experiences there. So there's 3 things I'll just say real quickly.
Please.
I had many out of body experiences. I had a spiritual transformational
Mhm.
experience, and I had a near death experience. And those really, to get that kind of guidance and know that you're supposed to be here. You didn't you didn't live for
Right.
nothing. I mean, I remember laying there praying, look, having this little chat with God, that's my higher power,
Mhm.
whatever that is for anyone else, and just saying, if you're not going to get me out of here or get me better, then get me out of here.
Mhm.
It was like the line in the sand here. Let's make a choice,
For sure.
because this is not as fun what I'm experiencing.
Right.
But I was shared a couple things in the near death that I would love to share
That's
with
what
your
the show is
audience, if
for.
that's
That's what
okay.
this is about. Please.
I was pitching the day I found out I had COVID. I was pitching a group of people that had this big audacious goal with tech companies, and they had a billionaire backer.
Wow.
And so I'm pitching with this new concept I had called a company called Retreat
Uh-huh.
R&R. It's now incorporated. It was not
Yeah.
then. And I wanted to partner with them so
Right.
bad. And when I was in my coma and having my near death experience, God told me not to. He said that that is not the highest and best thing to do with the company. It's going to take you
Right.
longer, but that's not what you need to do.
Wow.
And kind of devastating a little bit at the time, because I was so excited
Of
about
course.
it, and they would have the backing to make it happen faster. So that was one thing. Just fast forward, I
Yeah.
listened and I incorporated the company about maybe 90 days or so after I got out of the
Yeah.
hospital, which I was still
Of
really sick. I was still
gosh.
on
Yeah.
oxygen. I had long COVID setting in. All the diagnoses from everything that it had caused was
Oh
coming
my
in.
God.
How I did it,
Yeah.
miracle. I have so many miracles to my story, so many.
Yeah.
One other one I'll just share real quick was I never had medical insurance. Entrepreneurs don't always have medical
Obviously.
insurance.
Obviously.
And my husband was an entrepreneur
Right.
too. So how we raised 8 kids and didn't have anything major
It's a
happen,
miracle.
another
Right.
miracle.
Oh gosh.
2 months before I got in the hospital, a friend of mine said, "Hey, there's some new plans out there. Let me just quote it for you. I think you'll be surprised." And I
Yeah.
was, and we got
Oh my
it.
gosh.
And 2 months later, I'm in the hospital and I end up with $1 million
Oh
hospital
my
bill.
God. Oh my God. Oh my God. I mean, you want to talk about, I mean, you're talking about the sickness and then getting sick when I mean, there's enough lines on the bill to even show that.
I mean, that would bankrupt
Of
anybody, you know? It
100%,
just
150%. So 2 months, like it was, it was your faith that got you to make sure that that friend was in place to say, do this. And then you got out. And luckily you didn't have the financial burden to deal with something like that
yeah,
after you're trying to heal and actually get back. But oh my
yeah.
gosh,
It was, yeah, so many. So there's always, yeah,
wonderful,
I think I'm on like miracle number 9 right now.
beautiful, beautiful.
Obviously, I'm keeping track because I
Yes,
care. I
yes.
mean, they matter,
Yeah,
and miracles happen every day.
right.
So the second thing that I was shared with in my near death was to go start this nonprofit,
Mhm.
and then I was told the name, Adventure Bucket
I got that written
Wish.
down. I wanted to talk about that too.
And I wasn't really given any other guidance than
Mhm.
that, which kind of stinks. But it's okay. That was a whole journey in itself of
Yeah,
that. And so I'm not only starting this brand new company for Retreat R&R, which was it's a software company
right.
and tech company. I'm starting a nonprofit too. And
Unbelievable.
on top of that, I was still doing real estate, you know. So that was another miracle, by the way, I will share. I had my biggest real estate year in like 17 years or so. That year that I got sick and I was in the hospital, and I only worked 8 months of that whole year. And financially, that was my biggest real estate year ever.
That's
So
amazing.
that's another miracle,
That's
because like
amazing.
6 weeks before
Yeah,
I went to hospital, I closed a $2.2 million deal,
that's
which
un
I had never even closed $1 million deal up until then.
yeah,
Well, maybe $1 million
right.
deal, but not 2.
That's
So
unbelievable. That's a lot.
just, I mean, there was just so many amazing things that were
Right.
there to the story. But yeah, so that's kind of brings us up to now and where I ended up. But I'm happy to answer any questions about that coming
Well,
up.
the crazy part about it is you covered a lot of bases, and so I was glad. I'm always a big fan of letting people tell their story rather than me reading it out bullet point by bullet point. You know, it's my job to hear what you have to say for this respective show. And so, one of the things that
Oh,
I was
sure.
really fascinated by was you're very active on social media, and obviously, your illness was your story to tell. Your trials and tribulations and successes, your story to tell. What I thought was fascinating, you even posted pictures of yourself on the ventilator. So like just to show, like I was like, wow, I was like, oh my gosh, she was in really bad shape. And then, but how do you handle 8 kids, multiple businesses, nonprofits, getting out of the hospital, and then you pick up like nothing ever happened?
Oh, there's a lot
Yeah,
that happened.
but it's just
You know what? I think it's just when I think for me, what gave me the will was I got my life back. I
yes,
might have all this crappy diagnoses and the long COVID and all that came with it,
hmm
but every day better was better for me.
right,
And
right.
there were lots of sets. I still have
I'm
setbacks.
sure,
I'm not going to lie. I still do. This year I had a 10-week setback
unbelievable.
and I traveled through it. I don't think I gave any talks during that time,
Yeah,
but I was traveling, doing things, and you just push through it.
right,
But I also realized that God put me in a coma to get me to sit still so I would listen.
right, right.
What a better
You
way?
know,
Not for
you
me.
know, it's funny. I heard a statement one time where people were asking, well, how did I get this, indentation above my lip? It's like God put his finger over my mouth and said,
That's the
so I was
best.
like, dang.
Best answer ever.
Right. So I always thought that was kind of funny. I'm like, because I have that indentation in my lip, right? So it's like, and I'm podcasting
That's
talking.
great.
So, let's talk, if you can, more specifically about Adventure Bucket List Wish Foundation, because it was for women entrepreneur, team building, and I saw some of the pictures and things like that. So can you give some details and insight into that?
Yeah, so that's the whole story in itself.
Yeah.
Okay, talk about shift. So entrepreneurs, business people listening. Like this was a huge shift, and it was not an easy one for me.
hmm
So I was given the name and not much more instruction. So within 3 months, I go in, I incorporate the company. We applied that year for the not 501c3 nonprofit status,
Right.
and I got it in 25 days. I claim that as another miracle because that doesn't I don't think it usually happens that fast. So we had that and could move forward. Well, originally we were supporting long COVID because when I got out of the hospital, I didn't have a cause.
Right.
God didn't tell me what to do it for. He
Right.
just said, start this nonprofit.
Right.
And to me, I was still pretty sick. The COVID fog was there
Oh my goodness.
and it was an underserved community.
Right.
I mean, we're well over 100 million people who are suffering from long COVID.
Oh my.
Like it's a lot of
That
people.
many people?
And so
Wow.
oh, I think there's way more, and they just don't realize 200 symptoms are attached to it.
Yeah.
So that's everything. If you think about a symptom,
hmm
medical symptom, and there's 200 attached to long COVID.
hmm
So a lot of people, they just haven't put it together yet. My issues started after I had COVID.
Well, that would be right.
Anyway, so we went with that. That was what the mission was, and it was fighting tooth and nail for everything. Nobody wanted to hear about it. It was a struggle. The whole thing was a struggle. And so about, let's see, I want to say a year and a half, 2 years in, because it was just a little over a year ago, I was
hmm
recording, I had a podcast and I knew something wasn't right, but I thought, just keep doing the podcast. But I took all the fundraisers off the calendar that year because I was like, something's not right. And I kept doing the podcast. And one day I was recording and I all of a sudden, the girl's telling her story. She was a victim of COVID and had long COVID. And
hmm
she's telling her story, and I'm reliving mine. I could tell my breathing was bad. I was like, what is happening, as I'm recording? And I do video podcast. And I was like, what's going on? And all of a sudden, I got this huge download, which is just
Yes.
what
Yeah.
And I basically hear, this is not your mission anymore. This
Right.
is your last podcast.
Wow.
I was actually pretty excited to hear that because
Yeah.
I just felt like I needed that confirmation,
Right.
but to get it while I'm live on air
hmm
interviewing somebody, I had a hard time finishing her poor story.
Right.
I let her finish,
Right.
but I canceled everything right after and I was just
I'm
like, all
done.
right.
Yeah.
But then I sold because then I'm thinking, all right, why would God tell me to start this nonprofit and then take it away?
hmm
So I called one of my board members who's also an energy healer. And she said, if I remember right, you got the name, but you didn't get the cause. And I said, you're
Right.
right. And she said, So keep the name and change the cause.
Problem solved.
So that it was like, duh. And she says, what would light you up? What would make you
Right.
excited? Because she knew it was depressing. And what I realized quickly was that I was living in wellness energy, and that nonprofit was keeping me in
Got
sickness
it.
energy
Yeah.
and negative.
Right.
And people wanted to be victims. And I believe me, my heart goes out to anyone that
Right.
has it. I get that. But I think because I was
Turn the
healing and
corner.
I was getting,
You need to.
yeah, it just wasn't a match and brought me
You
down.
know, the thing is about it too is like ultimately one of the reasons I started this podcast for me primarily is because it's obviously I hadn't suffered any sickness like that, but it was you gravitate towards positive personalities and things that bring you joy and happiness, right? And so hearing stories like yours, hearing entrepreneurs, and not just the business side of things, but hearing the actual personal struggle, because people have a tendency just to see a beautiful image, oh, their success, their business website. But Holly has a story. And here you were very successful, overcoming an illness, and you said, you know what, this isn't making me personally satisfied, and all the signs are telling me not to do this anymore. And when your heart's not in it, things go bad really badly, because I mean you won't give the attention, the audience the proper effort. You're depressed while doing it, and you owe it to the people, like, hey, you're better off receiving services from somebody who's going to put their heart into what you're talking about as opposed to me, right? And it goes a long way.
Right.
It really, and that's an honest assessment. And so I thought when I was reading about you, I said, we all say we're busy, but I'm like, I have no excuses. This woman's got businesses. She's got nonprofits. She has a publishing. She do retreats. You did a spa. And I'm just like, how do you balance all this? This is nuts.
Oh, sometimes not very well.
It's a testament to your will. And I just want to give you a lot of credit for that because, and your company is Holly Porter International. Please talk about your company if you could.
Yeah, so Hollyport International evolved. It's been changed the name several times. It started with a main attraction, which was MANE for the salon.
Yes.
It was called that. And then when I moved away and I closed that down, I really didn't. Oh, I didn't close it. I closed the salon part of it, but I just changed the name. It was Prosperity Profilers. Before that, actually, it was the Image Designers, because I was helping people, because I was my own team.
Mm-hmm.
So I could go fly to somebody and I could spend 2 days with them, and I could do their hair, their
Mm-hmm.
makeup, their color analysis, their personality profiling, closet revival, and professional shopping.
Yeah.
I didn't have to bring a team because I had a license for everything. So I changed, just as things evolve, I would always work it in.
Yeah.
And so I literally kept the same tax ID number for like 4 different companies because I would just evolve. And when it was Prosperity Profilers, I had events that I would do in Las Vegas every 6 months called the Prosperity
Right.
Event. And it was so fun. And I had to stop because of the
Right.
pandemic, it shut everything down.
For sure.
And I, of course, I was, it took a long time for me to get better. I didn't really work a lot for about a year and a half because
Unbelievable.
it just,
I mean,
it was a
I mean,
lot.
just get out
But,
of a coma and then out of hospitalization for 70 days, get discharged, and then they say,
oh,
hey, 2 weeks later, go ahead and do wind sprints or go to the gym. Like, no, like that means you were just good enough to discharge. That doesn't mean you
yeah. Well, and I really wasn't. I just know how to bake. And they wanted to send me to a third rehabilitation place. And I'm like, I had it all
yeah.
planned out. My son had a house on one level. We didn't even have a home at the time. We were living, when I got sick, in a fifth wheel, waiting to close on a house. And
Wow.
we were parked in the house, which was like a
Right.
spa. Don't get, we weren't
Right.
running.
Right. Right. Yeah.
Trust me. I mean, so here my husband, he was home sick most of the time while I was in the hospital. He couldn't even come to the hospitals, and they wouldn't let him for 3.5 weeks.
How lonely is
So
that?
he was on oxygen, blood clot, but not bad enough to get hospitalized. So we were both really fighting all that. And so he was in the fifth wheel a lot longer. But I mean, that was another miracle how we were able to find another
Yeah.
home and do that. But it took me a month before I couldn't even, I didn't even have the energy to get up the fifth wheel step with my oxygen tank because I couldn't even lift it. I had no
Unbelievable.
energy. And so until a month later out of the hospital, I could even do that. I couldn't even go back to the actual home that I was in, the little confinement. But yeah, I mean, there were so many amazing things. But sorry, I was going to tell you, I didn't. So Hollyport International came out of
Yeah.
all of those. I decided to brand it with my name because it became more business consulting and coaching, and I
Right.
love personal development. I'm
Right.
all about that. I love motivating people.
Right.
And so I use that just as my brand. And then I have my other companies.
Right. So, and first of all, you don't have to apologize about anything on the show. It's all about you and the guest and their experience, what story they want to tell. But one question I was curious about when I was going on hollyporterinternational.com was like, you help businesses, you're doing consulting. What area of business did you see that businesses, irrespective of their size, even if it's just a broad overview statement, did you find out what their weaknesses were and where you came in to help and what they were missing and why they utilized your company?
Honestly, because I'm such an empath,
Mhm.
I feel like where people say they're gonna hire a business coach, so to speak, and I really feel like a life coach matches it even better
Mhm.
because almost every business I've ever talked with agrees with me that a lot of times the challenges you're having in your business is because of the challenges you're having in your life.
Okay.
And so it seems like when you go back in and you start doing more life coaching with
Yeah.
people and helping figure out why that's dragging into their business, you help them repair and fix and correct a few things
Right.
there, and then everything changes. The
Right.
relationship changes, their life changes, and their business changes.
Right.
So I really like transformational things that way, which is why I love retreats because they're a little deeper dive,
Right.
and when you bring people into your fold and spend more time with them, you can dig a lot deeper.
That's beautiful. And I've heard, I mean, first of all, I can only imagine as an entrepreneur, you're holding multiple hats, you're doing multiple things. And then sometimes the person themselves is the one that's not getting the most attention, right? Because you're focusing on closing a deal, you're focusing on employees, you're focusing on clients, prospective sales, if you have family, you have children, and then all of a sudden you're the one that's not getting any attention, your well being. And then depending on anything that could, if any fault lines or cracks start to show in your personal life, then like you said, it can start bleeding into your business and it could bleed into the results and the performance of the company. And if it's just you and your
Yeah.
family, you got to find a way to get out of that really quick because ultimately your next deal is how you feed your household.
Well, and think about it like if you have kids, if your listeners are listening and they have younger kids or high school kids like we did,
Mhm.
has so many of them, it's you see it coming out. So like where you're failing is when your kids start getting into trouble and they start
Right.
doing things because you haven't been present and being there. And now all of a sudden you're dealing with truancy issues at school or you're
Mhm.
dealing with somebody out in the parking lot smoking some pot. I mean, trust me, we had a little bit of everything going
And
on.
then,
And you blame yourself
right.
for sure.
It doesn't, and here's the crazy part about it is people get judgmental. That doesn't make somebody a bad person. What it means is that life freaking happens, right? That's all it boils down to. And so everybody just has to, understand that we're not unique in struggles and things that we see and the things that can happen. And it can happen to anybody. Zip code, state, city, doesn't matter. It really doesn't, you know. And so
Yeah.
I
All
know I was
day.
just gonna say it's just for anybody who thinks that somebody I just think it's very important not to pass judgment. And like I said, I mean I'm a
Right.
father of three daughters, and they're not in high school yet, and I've already I have to change my approach to talking to them because my oldest one's is 12, and it's like you have to talk to that person like a person, right? Like an actual.
Yes.
It's not they're not three or four where you can kind of dance around how you're talking to them. Like no, you're having a full conversation. You're like that's kind of an odd
Yeah.
body experience. I have to sometimes look the other way. Like, am I really talking to a having a conversation with somebody that was in a crib. It's weird.
I, well, the next thing you know, they're married with grandkids, and you have those kids around, and it's crazy. We have 18 grandkids with those
Just
eight
added to
kids.
the
So,
other great things that you're great at because I'm sure you're a fantastic grandmother. It's unbelievable.
oh, I wish I was a better grandmother, but I was going to share with you one other thing that I came out of my near
Please,
death
please.
experience because it's all about
Mhm.
judgment. The message was very clear: love them where they're
Mhm.
at. And when you really think about those words, it takes that judgment
Right,
away because that's just who they are. That's what they know, and that's what they're
right.
becoming. And you can't make someone do something
No,
usually.
no well,
I mean,
it's the same thing with this podcast, right? Like, it's obviously not parenthood, but listen, I can't make anybody have a conversation with me. I have to have compelling content. I have a reason for people to come on here. Like somebody could be listening to me for the very first time. And so it's very important that at the end of the day, I have some sort of structure. I'm professional. I have compelling guests, compelling content, because at the end of the day, people have a lot of options in life. They have a lot of things that are vying for their attention. They have a lot of places they can go. They had a lot of real estate agents they could have reached out to instead of you. But because you had what you had, the juice, so to speak, they came back and they wanted to do business with you. So
yeah,
when you find that little nugget or that area that you're good at, you don't take it for granted, right? You don't, you have to sit back and say, every day I'm going to put my best foot forward because I need to present myself on a better level because people will take and go other places ultimately. They really will.
Well, and my husband always reminds me, when people see how busy you are, they think you're too busy
Yep.
for them. And I wish I could say, first of all, I want to say, do you want a busy person doing something that you want to get done, or do you want someone who's not busy? Because if they're busy, that means they're getting things done.
Absolutely. 150%.
And I'm like,
150%.
everyone can make time
Yes.
for what they want. If you
Absolutely.
want something, we'll make time for it. And for me, real estate pays my bills. So my motto is everything stops for real estate. Whatever's going on, this is my livelihood.
Right.
So you just figure it out, because like today I have a full schedule. What if somebody wants to go look at properties today?
Right.
There's a panic setting in because I've got stuff scheduled like back to back.
Right.
And so you
Right.
just have to adapt and be flexible and just know that life can change on a dime.
Well, for sure. For sure you do. And so it's even like, and I'll just leave it with this. When I start doing this podcast and people start having to get schedules on their calendar, that's when like they're carving out small windows and they got other stuff that's going on. So, you need to honor their time and their busy schedules. I always ask every guest, that's on this show, because you guys are smarter than me. I'm just a guy asking questions. Where can people find Holly Porter, her story? And obviously there's more to you than just business. You touched on it a little bit, but where can people find you?
Yeah, my whole near-death experiences on lots. You could search that on YouTube. I've done a lot of shows on that.
Right.
But hollyporter.com is the easiest place just if you want to connect, or the nonprofit, you go check that out, and you can also connect with us there. adventurebucketwish.org.
It's beautiful.
And all social media.
And like I said, I got a chance to watch a lot of your clips, and everything's very inspiring. And I love the way that you keep the positive message out, because unfortunately, sometimes the best positive messages don't resonate to the widest audiences, right? It's usually something bad happened to somebody that gets the most clicks. So thank you for putting that light in. Yeah, thank you for putting that light out into the world. So I'm honored that you carved out time out of your busy schedule and your calendar. I hope we have a follow-up conversation.
Thank you.
Holly Porter, thank you for being on the Tron podcast.